Dr. Stephen Gundry's best-selling book, The Plant Paradox, he says lectins are microscopic proteins that plants evolved to defend themselves from predators, including insects and animals, and that includes humans. They're essentially indigestible and have the unique ability to increase the permeability of your intestines. That means if they can pass through the wall of your gut, and they will be treated as foreign invaders by your immune system. This causes an inflammatory response, which can set the stage for a host of diseases as well as weight gain. So what foods are rich in lectins? Generally speaking, all grains and legumes have more lectins than anything else. In some cases, pressure cooking can destroy the lectins. Nightshade vegetables, squashes, and select nuts and seeds are also rich in lectins. Do you agree with Dr. Gundry? Why or why not?
I don't think any legitimate nutritional scientist in the world agrees with Dr. Grundy. I think that they can't agree because it's a made-up fallacy and a scam. What do you want me to say? If you go through his book and you pull the references he quoted, the references don't support his hypothesis. All the studies on longevity show that eating beans make people live longer and reduce risks of cancer. We know that there are lectins in beans that can cause a problem if they're not cooked. But when they're cooked properly, which is the way people eat them, they don't have a problem and they extend lifespan. So his attack on plant foods is nonsensical and fabricated. That lectins actually, the lectins that are cooked in beans that remain actually have beneficial effect, anti-cancer effects, immune stimulating and stem cell stimulating effects, and can even have effects on building bones and have anti-cancer effects. There's no documentation of negative effects of the things he's claiming about. He's making all types of claims that are unsupported. Where's his peer-reviewed evidence for the claims he's making? He's making radical and exaggerated claims, and he's lying about what the research shows. So it's information that can't be trusted, and that book should just be burned or, disregarded as nonsense. It's an embarrassment to be in this field of nutritional medicine and to be a nutritional scientist, to have somebody like that making such claims based on insufficient and non-existing evidence.
There are so many paleo, keto, Atkins, low-carb authors and books. Why are so many people who are well-educated, credentialed, and smart concluding that the low-carb diet, not the whole food plant-based diet, is best for human health? And what are the most compelling, important, and convincing studies that make you believe that a whole food plant-based diet is the proper diet for humans and that a diet that includes animal products is not?
It is redundant to what was already said before. And, that you can try to justify any kind of diet you want to eat. And people love their animal products and don't want to give them up, And I think that I can take a diet called the Twinkie diet and feed people Twinkies. And you know what? They'll do pretty well in the short term. Because when you're eating nothing but Twinkies, you won't want to just keep eating huge amounts of calories. You get sick of eating Twinkies, so you keep your calories down. You're just eating and you lose a little weight, and your triglycerides will look better, and your diabetic parameters might improve, and you might even, but those are called soft endpoints, and those are small numbers of people with short-term studies. And cutting out the carbohydrate from your diet can help people lose weight. Smoking cigarettes can help you lose weight, especially if you snort cocaine and smoke cigarettes can help you lose weight. Those short-term endpoints are not necessarily going to devise what's going to have you live a long life. For that, we have to look at long-term studies for decades. So, a little redundant here, but I have to say this, pick my words carefully. Every single long-term study, every single study looking at hard endpoints, every one of them, not one, shows that diets high in animal products can extend lifespan and make hard endpoints like heart attacks and cancers go down. And there's not one study, there's numerous studies that are well done. These people who are trying to advocate eating a high animal product diet always have an excuse why this study is not right and that study is biased and this study didn't look at that and this study showed this, and they try to twist and disregard every study that shows the same information. And what I'm saying is the evidence is overwhelmingly, you can't argue against it because they all show the same thing. And the same thing is true with nuts and seeds in a diet, by the way, too. All the studies on nuts and seeds, whether they're supported by the nut companies, whether they're not supported, whether it's done a large number of people, small number of people, looking at cancer, look at heart attacks, they all show the same thing, that nuts and seeds included in the diet decrease all causes of death, cardiovascular death, cancer death, and all-cause mortality. whatever your rationale is for trying to think is you don't need them or it's not good or they're bad, this people they just try to, whatever they want to believe and whatever their advocacy is based on, whatever they want to prove their legacy or their egos or promote their own diets, they have to be consistent with the overwhelming preponderance of evidence, and they're not. The overwhelming preponderance of evidence shows a wide variety of plant foods in the diet and it extends human lifespan. And we have an unprecedented opportunity in human history today. We can eat a wide variety of different plant foods because we can fly in foods from different parts of the country. We can keep them in refrigerators. We can freeze the wild blueberries and eat. We can eat all types of foods in our diets and keep our wide spectrum of healthy natural foods, which enables us to live a long, healthy life free of disease. And by not taking advantage of that modern nutritional science and eating a diet with a lot of animal products and cutting out fruit and cutting out vegetables and cutting out beans or cutting out nuts and seeds, which some vegans are trying to do, that's insanity. It's just stupid.
The low-carb diets recommend getting your body into ketosis. What's wrong with that?
We're doing more studies all the time. Last year in 2018, a study came out that showed that as people lowered the carbohydrate in their diet with type of paleo or keto promoting diets, the risk of death went up. It's a theory, it's a hypothesis. You could live your life based on these crazy hypotheses, but if you have a scientific and a logical mind, you want to try to weigh evidence, and you want to look at all the evidence that's available, and not just pick the one amount of data you like to support some crazy idea you have.
What's happening to our healthcare system, and what will happen if nothing changes? How will we afford to pay for everyone's medical care?
Well, I don't know if I can answer that question. I can say this, that if people ate a salad and a big bowl of vegetable bean soup and a piece of fruit for lunch, if we get the whole America to eat a salad, a vegetable bean soup and a piece of fruit for lunch, we could dramatically reduce healthcare costs. If we can just get some public service announcements on living longer to prevent cancer and to prevent heart disease by eating a better diet, even if our population just improved one meal a day, we'd probably see healthcare costs go down by 30 to 60%. We could solve this problem pretty easily just by getting better food into our hands of our population. Right now we tell people, take folic acid to prevent birth defects because American women are deficient in folate. Folate's not folic acid, they're deficient in folate. Folate comes from green vegetables and beans. American women, and men too, aren't eating vegetables and beans. And they have abnormal babies because of it. So instead of telling them to eat vegetables and beans, we give them a pill, folic acid. That's just an enabler, which now lets them not have to eat vegetables and beans to get folate. And because of that now, we have higher rates of childhood cancer because mothers who don't eat vegetables have kids with childhood cancer because we're giving them a folate pill instead of telling them they have to eat vegetables. It's all about the same thing. We're always looking for some pill people can take to solve their problems. Like take a pill so you can smoke 3 packs a day of cigarettes and not get lung cancer. Life is not a fairy tale. People looking for some magic they could take, some magic. The reality is the magic doesn't work. If you want to be healthy, you have to earn it. You have to live a healthy lifestyle in a very healthy diet because everything you put in your mouth matters a real lot. I'm not advocating public service announcements be the avenue at which we change America. There's a lot of things we have to do to make this work. I'm also suggesting that we have to teach education about nutrition in the school system, from all through elementary school too, because the one most critical information that affects our health destiny is what we put in our mouth. And what we eat as a child affects our whole future for the rest of our life. And we're the only country in the world today that feeds our children in school cafeterias a class 1 carcinogen, which is like processed meats. The point I'm making is now it should be reading, writing, arithmetic, and nutritional science. We have the whole comprehensive approach about changing the information that gets out to our population and let them know they have control of their health destiny, and we can improve the health of Americans. And I have lots of great ideas there. And my book, Fast Food Genocide, goes into that to a certain degree. But I'm not saying one thing is the way we're going to solve all the problems. And why do doctors have the role of teaching nutrition? They're not educate the population. They're not the educators. They're not, they don't have time to educate people. They're dealing with people with issues that are emergencies. I agree that they should be saying something about it, but it's not going to solve the problem. So if doctors were trained, it wouldn't solve the problems. It has to be a total societal change from hitting it from lots of different avenues, angles.
What are the health implications from eating salt? How much of an effort should we make to avoid it? It seems to be in everything.
Well, there's salt in all natural foods. It's there for a reason. And usually in natural foods, they contain the right amount of what we need. The amount of sodium we get from greens and beans and onions and, and celery and cucumber and lettuces, there's sodium in there. We get about, 500 to 1,000, 700, 800 milligrams from natural foods. About half as many sodium as calories. Nature didn't blow it, didn't make a mistake. We don't have to take a different source of sodium and add it. There's already the right amount of magnesium and phosphorus and potassium and sodium in natural foods. The problem is that as in modern times, we're adding huge amounts of salt on top of what natural foods contain. And as we pass a certain threshold of sodium, we have a lot of problems that could develop from it. And one of those problems is high blood pressure. And one of those problems is microvascular inflammation and microvascular hemorrhaging that can weaken the endothelium, the interior lining of the blood vessels, laying the blood vessel with a higher propensity for rupture and breakage, causing a hemorrhagic stroke. Now, a hemorrhagic stroke is possible in a vegan, by the way. It doesn't protect you from hemorrhagic strokes. There are two types of strokes. There's ischemic or embolic stroke, which is caused by, a plaque breaking off, or caused by the same thing causing heart attacks, a clot in the bloodstream. But a hemorrhagic stroke is a break of the fragile blood vessels. And some studies indicate that higher levels of cholesterol and more meat in the diet, causing more atherosclerosis or thickening of the blood vessels, protects the fragile vessels in the brain against hemorrhaging because the vessels become thicker walled. And that vegans and lower cholesterol people are at higher risk of hemorrhagic stroke, especially if they eat salt. The point I'm making right now is that being on a plant-rich or vegan diet doesn't protect you against hemorrhagic stroke if you're still having salt. And maybe you're at higher risk on a vegan diet of having a hemorrhagic stroke if you're still using a lot of salt. It may be more important for a vegan to watch their salt intake, because if you're not going to die of a heart attack or an ischemic stroke, and your rate of cancer is going to lower, then what are you going to die of? We don't want to just substitute one cause of death to another. For example, in some of the Asian countries, like Japan, South Korea, they have much less heart attacks and much less ischemic strokes, but much higher rate of hemorrhagic stroke because they eat more salt than we do. They have lower bacon and meats, more vegetables and fish and salt, and because they have 10 times the incidence of hemorrhagic stroke. We don't want to emulate that. Salt is a major risk factor for death if you take in large amounts of it. I'm saying right now is that food has enough for most people, real food. You don't have to add added salt. There are some individuals, though, certain genetic or medical conditions that may require a little extra salt. Most people do better with as little salt as possible. But even if you're a person that needs a little more salt, it still should be regimented to the level you need and not just think that any amount is okay. Because any amount is okay, that way of thinking gets a lot of people in serious trouble.